Welcome back to another episode of Guns 101, where today we're going to talk about Husqvarna pistols. A lot of people don't even know these exist. I like to think of it as like a Walmart version of some really cool pistols. This one here being a copy of an FN 1903, and this being a copy of a finished Lahti. We're going to come in for a closer look and go over all the history and some really cool things that went on with these guns, because they do have a really interesting history. So this is a closer look at the Husqvarna FN copy. This is a copy of an FN 1907, or a 1903 actually. This is called the model 1907, which is kind of interesting there. You'll notice it looks very much like a 1911. However, these were chambered in 9mm, and then when they were brought to the US after FN said you can't sell these anymore, and they had so many sitting in a warehouse, they just said, well, we'll send them to America and America will buy them. So America loves buying guns. And that was true back then as much as it is today. And what they did was they took them and they chambered them. You can see here real closely. They chambered it in 380 because 380 was just as popular as 9mm is today. It was just as prevalent back then. And originally 380 was called a 9mm short. Because if we take and we look at a 380 right here, and we put it next to a 9mm, you can see it's just a little bit shorter than a 9mm. And it was very much the pistol to have, the caliber to have back then. And one thing you'll notice is this does have a grip safety here. It also has a lanyard loop, which I find kind of interesting. You'll notice that there is no mag release right here. So if we pull this back, and I'll show you it's empty. So if we pull this back to right here and we take the mag out, it still locks in because there is a mag lock. However, that's how you release the slide. All right, so this is the next pistol. This is a M40 is what it's called. It's a Lahti copy. So the Lahti pistol was made by the Finnish in the 1930s and is very popular. And this is Husqvarna's version of it that they used quite a bit. They sold it to a lot of companies. It was made from 1940 to 1946. And this one, you see a Husqvarna right there. And then you can see this D on the serial number. That prefix of D means it was given to the Danish police and then later surplus to the US. They used these at least the Danish police used these for a very long time. They were actually in service until the 90s in some areas, which is kind of interesting to think about. So this is a standard. This one is in 9mm. We have our same little catch down here. This pulls out, and that is I'm going to say this is a 7-shot mag. Might be an 8-shot mag. It is very hard to load. These originally came with a loading tool that you could, looks like a piece of wire, and it would depress this down so you could load it. I hate loading this gun because I don't have one here, but I plan on getting one eventually. So there's that. It is a standard. I'll show you, see it's empty. So what's really cool is when you shoot this, if I put pressure on this barrel, this moves back. And when we take it apart, I'll show you how that actually works. So when you shoot this thing, so you pull the trigger, this recoils back and it hits a little thing in here called an accelerator, which gives it an extra kick. Supposedly these Finnish, the Lahti 45 or the Lahti 35 was very, very reliable. And that goes on with this gun. This gun's pretty reliable as well. You can see it says made in Sweden right there when they imported it to the US. And it's pretty interesting there. So we'll take this thing apart and I'll show you how it works. So when you're taking this thing apart, what you want to do is push the gun down like this. So I like to do it. And then we're going to flick this switch right here. Right, so we flick that switch, and then this top just slides right off, nice and clean. So in the Husqvarnas only, this is your captive recoil spring. This is actually captive here, which is kind of cool. So there's that there. This is captive. In a Lahti, in an actual finished Lahti, this isn't captive. This will fall out. All right, so one thing we want to see here, we're going to pull this out completely. That's our bolt carrier. And this piece slides out. And we're field stripped. It's that easy. That's how you field strip this thing. Super simple, super easy to take care of, super easy to clean. This is called the accelerator, this guy right here. And what this does, as you can see in there, when the bolt moves, it hits this thing. Let's see if we can get it to move. So when the bolt moves, it moves this little piece here, and that just gives it a little bit of a kick. Is what it was designed to do, to make this thing super reliable, especially in Finland where things freeze. When you're buying a Lahti, or in this case an M40 Lahti, you want to look about right here, right there, and you want to make sure there's no cracks or anything. So if there's cracks there from shooting too high power ammunition, and this is something they found when they were testing these, was if you put in spicy or, you know, high power 9mm out of, like, say a machine gun, these would start to crack right there. So that's something when you're shooting these, you just want to use standard ammo, but you want to use something that's not too spicy. And I'll put some on, I'll put what ammo I like to use on the screen so you can see that. But here's this, and this is what it looks like on this side. So you can see it's got this nice little hex bolt here, which is kind of interesting how Husqvarna cut some corners to make this easier to manufacture. That's literally a hex bolt to remove that barrel, which is kind of cool. Nice and easy. You can see some cruder markings on these compared to an actual finished Lahti. So there's that. And interesting enough, on this little piece, because it does matter about how you put it in there, it's got a little arrow to show you that points towards the front of the gun. So we're just going to take that, slide it in there. So reassembly, we're just going to take this piece, make sure our arrow is pointing where it's supposed to be, drop it in here, like so. Then we're going to take this guy, slide him in, and that'll lock all that together. And we're going to flip it over, and we're going to line up right there, and just slide that in. We're going to push it back, lock our rod in place, and then we're going to safety check it, pull it back, and these like to get stuck, so you'll notice this if you ever buy one. When I pull this back, it kind of just hangs out, and then you give it a little shakes and it goes in. So we know that this one's good. We're going to slide our mat, and that is how you field strip a Lahti. So an interesting thing about this gun is right about here, you see we have this here. This is a groove to put a stock on. So you'd slide a stock onto this thing, and you would have a stock coming over to your arm, so that you could use it more effectively like a carbine, or carbine, however you want to say that word. Now, the thing about that is these were never made, Lahtis in general, whether it's the M40 Husqvarna copy or if it's the M35 actual finished Lahti pistol, they never made the stocks. There was a few hundred prototypes, I want to say, if that. Forgotten Weapons has a really cool video. I'll put a link in the description on those so you can take a look at them and see what those actually look like, because a few did exist, but they weren't ever mass produced. They were never meant for everyone to have. They were never issued. All right, so that was a closer look at the two most popular Husqvarna pistols you're going to be seeing out in the world. If you would like to pick one up, I would definitely check out Bighorn Firearms, Gun Broker, and their arms list. Every now and then they come across some really cool things. These are getting harder and harder to come across, so you may want to check out some gun shows, check online. I'm sure they're out there if you're willing to look for them. They're pretty inexpensive. This one over here, because there were so many more of them produced, this FN copy, you can pick one of these up for $500 to $600, whereas this Lahti, they're going for a little bit more. I've seen them go for about 8 to 9, depending on which one you pick up. So there's that. Now, to go over some really simple things, the reason I field stripped this one is because finding a field strip video is not as easy, whereas this FN over here, field stripping it is very similar to a 1911 or any of the Browning designs. They're very similar. They both have the barrel bushings here. You would just push it down, swivel it over. I'll do a video on how to field strip it when I can do a video on shooting it, because right now, due to COVID, I have not had time to go shoot this one. So be expecting a shooting video coming up. You saw some shooting with this. This is a great pistol. It shoots very, very well. While this one, I've only shot a few of them, and I have not shot this exact one, which is actually mine, so I haven't had time to go film any of that. That being said, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you down the road. All right, so here's a closer look at the stock. And you can see this says Husqvarna. There's a lot of smooth all over this gun. Stop.